Hi, everyone. My name's Andy Atkins Pogue. I am a librarian here at CRC, but I'm also our OER/zero textbook cost coordinator. So today we're talking about a new opportunity in the OER Conversion Grant to create chatbots connected to openly licensed material. Right before I have a couple announcements related to the OER conversion grant. So right before I left on break, I got confirmation from the state chancellor's office that I will be able to extend the time that we have to spend our grant funding for the grant money that we receive from the chancellor's office, so that the deadline for doing the all of the deliverables for this is now extended into next May. So initially it was this May, but now it is being extended to next May. And what that means is if you have been kind of on the fence about applying for this opportunity because you didn't think you had enough time to do it, now there's a little bit more time. So we have all of spring, all of summer, all of next fall, all of next spring to complete all of the work that's needed for that. And then, so the new deadline is May of 2027. And then even that is a little bit squishy. So if you needed the summer to work on things, we just have to have stuff in place for fall of 2027. Okay. And we have this new opportunity in category 3, which is to create an AI assistant connected to openly licensed material. So that might be a bot connected to your OER textbook, or if an OER lab manual, or if you have created a bunch of material yourself and you are willing to share that under an open license and you want to create a bot connected to it, that's also allowable. So on this slide, it takes you first to the kind of the requirements for this particular category. But also the second is the actual website that has more information on the conversion grant. One of the reasons I'm so happy that the deadline has been extended is that I haven't gotten as many applicants as I thought we were going to get. And so we have a lot of money set aside to pay faculty to do this work. And I want to make sure that I would love for it to be used for that as opposed to other things. So the conversion grant, there are 4 different categories for which folks can apply. Category 1 is if you are using a commercial textbook and you're willing to switch to an openly licensed textbook, that is category 1. Category 2 is if you are had already been using an OER textbook, but there were some problems with it, or you wish that there were changes and you want to make those updates. That's called remixing, and that is category 2. Category 3, there are 2 options in category 3 now. One is creating open ancillaries and assessments connected to your course and connected to an OER. And that has to cover all of the learning outcomes for the course. So it can't just be like a handful of discussion prompts, but like that covers the entire course. And the idea behind that is that if a brand new faculty member was hired, say like a week before school starts, and they've been given a class that they never taught before, they would have access to resources, the openly licensed textbook, and all of the assignments so that they could build a class quickly and work from that, and then hopefully have some time to make some revisions themselves. The second option, and Eddie said, ouch, and you'd be surprised how often that happens, especially in English, it happens quite a bit where faculty are hired like the week before classes start. And it can be really, really challenging for folks who are coming in to Los Rios for the first time and trying to navigate all of that. So the second option in category three is creating these AI bots, which is really the focus of today. And I promise I will get to that in just a second. And then category four is publishing. If you've created material yourself, like a lab manual, and you are now willing to publish that under an open license, that is category four. All right. So for folks who just came in, I'm gonna put into chat, there is a link to mark that you were here today, just a quick form that you will fill out. And then there's also a link to the slide deck. And I want folks to know that this is being recorded and it will be put up on the YouTube channel for professional development. So if for some reason you don't want your picture or your name shown, can you please let me know in the chat so I can make sure that I let the folks who are editing the video know that information. For this category three option, if you scroll down a little bit further on the website, it does talk a little bit more about the options here. But then the nitty-gritty detail of this AI assistant opens up into a Google Doc because it was just too much information to try to put it on the website as well. So this Google document goes through the requirements of the person who is creating the bot, and it also goes through the requirements of someone who is testing the bot. So for this particular category, the faculty member who creates the bot, they're eligible for the $2,500 stipend to do this work. But part of that is that you need to find a faculty member within your discipline to actually test your bot. And basically, that person is going to try to break your bot and figure out where there are issues and problems so that then you can come back and correct it and try to make it as useful and ready to use as possible before you start using it. Now, the person who is testing the bot, they will be eligible for a smaller stipend, for a $500 stipend to do that testing portion. And for the testing, you can see down below there is a rubric of the areas in which they're looking for potential issues or problems. And the very last item on that talks about handling defined use cases. And so what I mean by that, if there are specific things or specific issues that you know your students struggle with, to give that as an example to your tester so that they can try to use the bot to see how that works and see if it helps solve those questions or helps find an answer to those questions. You also want to, most faculty that I've heard from so far really want to make sure that that the bot isn't like giving answers to quiz questions or homework assignments. And so you would want to provide your tester with that kind of question and answer and make sure that it's not providing answers to those particular things that you're concerned about. And what will happen is once you apply in this category, I've created a Google form that has all of these points in the rubric, and we will make one that's just for you and your tester, and that's what you will be sharing with your tester, and they'll be going through and documenting how they feel your bot worked. Okay, I'm going to go back to the slides. So right now, we're offering two options to create your bot in. And both of these are currently being funded by the California State Chancellor's Office. And Yeah, you're right, Eddie. If the bot is not giving them the answer, they're probably going to go someplace else. And so that's what I would say. Really, the the challenge with AI, as for those of you who were at the Institute yesterday, is really, I think we need to start rethinking the way that we are teaching and assessing our students, to really encourage them to want to use their brains for those critical thinking skills, to develop and continue to use those critical thinking skills. So I'm assuming because you all are here today that you have an interest in artificial intelligence and have likely used many tools already. Um, and so from my personal experience, I've even found myself starting to like want to take the easy way out when I'm overwhelmed with things. And and so I can see like how easily someone could get in the pattern of relying on these things and losing skills. So um, so really, I know there's a lot of mixed feelings about AI and what it means for higher education. And I don't have all the answers to that, but I know that some folks are interested in trying to utilize these resources and to have their students utilize them. And so we're trying to provide an opportunity that lets you to do that. I will say, of these two interfaces, if you're not familiar with either one of them and you think you might need some support, I would suggest picking Playlab because that is the one that I have most experience with and will be able to support you more than Nectar. I don't have very much experience with Nectar. I have an account and I've used it and I've created a bot, but I have way more experience with Playlab. Okay. And the slide deck has links to these. So a little comparison about some of the features into both of these platforms. So you can kind of get a side-by-side idea of what's behind these things. So for Playlab, there are multiple large language models that the bot that you're creating can have as the backside interface. And it's very robust. And so this link here will take you to Playlab's support page that lists all of the possibilities. For Nectar, it's more limited. It's ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude. Um, and depending on what you're teaching, very likely one of those is going to be working for you. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Let me go back. Um, and the difference between creating a bot like this and just sending students out to just a chat GPT or Gemini or whatever is that you have control of the knowledge base within this. And you can set parameters in there so that your bot is only accessing your material, your reference material, or you can open it up so that if it can't find the answer in the reference material, it's going to go out and use its knowledge base to try to find an answer to the question. So for Playlab, that knowledge base can be kind of any standard file, a Word document, a PDF, a PowerPoint slide, or it will take URLs. So if there's a website that you want to use as part of your knowledge base. But when you add URLs to the site, even if it's a URL to a Google document, it basically what it's doing is taking a snapshot of that URL at the time that you have added it into your knowledge base. So if it's a Google Doc, for example, if you make any changes to that Google document, you would want to get it out of your references, delete it, and then repost it, so that it's grabbing all of the information from that page. For Nectar, it takes standard files, Word, PowerPoint, PDF. And the other advantage of Nectar is it does take a Canvas cartridge. So if you downloaded your Canvas course, just like when you are copying a course over in Canvas and you get to that page and it asks you what pieces of this other course do you want to copy. Same thing in Nectar. It will ask you what information do you want to use in your knowledge base from your Canvas course. So Eddie asked, when you are adding reference material in there, are you giving permission for others to use that material? There's two sorts of answers to that. In Playlab, it's very easy for people to remix using your bot. So if I have a bot in there and people look at it and they say, "Oh, I want to use this too, but I want to look at what she did on the back end and make a copy of it." It's very easy to do that. But when you look at the references, you can see the names of the files, but you can't download the files. If it is a URL, you can copy the URL. So if it's a Google document, they could copy the URL and then open that up in another page. So if it was something that you really wanted to keep locked down, you would want to make sure that you're uploading PDFs or Word documents, something that others wouldn't have access to. For Nectar, it is not easy for folks to remix from other people's bots. The only way to do that is if I would have to create a copy and then add you as like an author to that copy, and then you would have access to it. And in that case, you would have access to the original files. And I will show you both of these on the back end in just a second. Okay. Sharing your bots for Playlab, it is super easy to share the bot. You can share a URL or you can share embed code. So embed code you could use like embedded into your content page in Canvas if you wanted to do that. For Nectar, you actually have to invite people into your workspace so that they can view and use your bot. And it's you can make it public, but it's like a two-step process. When someone clicks on the link, it asks for an email address, they enter the email address, then they go back to their email, they get a link. Once they click that, then they can open it. Now, Nectar does have an LTI, which is kind of a back-end electronic collection that has two different interfaces to be able to communicate with each other. So they have an LTI for Canvas, which means that if that was turned on in Canvas, you could have your bots show up in your Canvas course. However, Los Rios has been very conservative on allowing these AI materials to be turned on in Canvas. So I do have a request in to approve that LTI, but the process right now is it has to be approved by the DE coordinators and then Ed Tech, and then Ed Tech brings it to District Academic Senate, and then they bring it to individual campuses. So it's a very long process, and I don't anticipate that being approved anytime soon. So that's just a caveat on that one. I think it might be at some point, but right now, no. And then for student creation, now you probably wouldn't do it for this particular project. But if as you're creating your bot, you were thinking, wow, I would love to have my students creating bots and create an assignment related to that, which I think could be super useful in lots of disciplines. there is a way that you can create a workspace in Playlab and you can add students to that workspace so that they could be creators as well. At this time, Nectar does not allow that. Only faculty and educators can access Nectar. Okay, so that's kind of the side-by-side comparison of the two. This table that is in the slide deck, there are anything that's pink is a hyperlink, and so that'll kind of give you an idea of more information if you want to explore these more. So this next slide, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but it's here if you want to kind of play and see the same content in these two different interfaces. So I am chair of the Affordable Educational Resources Committee on campus, and one of our goals this semester was to create a bot to help faculty understand how to report required instructional materials to the campus bookstore so that you can let them know whether you're using OER or you're using a commercial text, and also how to add and remove the zero textbook cost symbol to your classes in the class schedule. I get a lot of questions about that, and I also have a lot of faculty who think I have some magical relationship with the bookstore and am able to adopt their textbooks for them, which I'm not. So it's really helpful for me to have something that I can then share to them and say, hey, why don't you ask your question to this bot, and hopefully it will cover those questions. So like I said, this bot is there's two different versions. One was created in Playlab, one was created in Nectar. You will see for the Nectar version, it's going to ask for an email address, and it does say your .edu address, although I tested it with my personal Yahoo address earlier this week and it did work. So if you have kind of like a scrap email that you use where all of your junk goes, I would recommend using that. And then once you enter that, you'll go into that email and click it, and then you'll be able to access the bot. Okay. Then this slide gives you some examples of bots that have been created by other faculty across the state, not here at CRC or within Los Rios, but other faculty. This first one, the Aztec AI, Fabiola Torres teaches ethnic studies at Glendale Community College, and she created this bot connected to this OER textbook. So you can kind of play with that and check it out. Chemistry is from Benny Ng. He's at LA Pierce College. This is not connected to an OER textbook, but it was just something that he created to help his students grasp chemistry concepts. The myelin is from Simontini, who is from Skyline Community College, and this is connected to this human anatomy textbook. Now, I will, one caveat on that one is that I don't know that she's actively using this. She was still working on it when I had a conversation with her, and she let me make a copy of the bot, but just know that it wasn't quite finalized when I made the copy. And then this OER helper for political science is connected to this OER textbook. And I will say that this app, in this app's design, the creator specifically told the bot to explore the student's interest without mentioning anything within the textbook before they kind of dug down to what the student was trying to find out. And I found that it kind of took things off course. So I would not recommend putting something like that inside your bot as you're developing it. But those are there on that slide, so you can check them out and see what some other folks are doing. Now, Nectar, I don't have an example besides the ZTC and required textbook example that I provided earlier. because it's just Nectar seems to be really have things locked down. But this slide does have a video where they did a webinar and kind of demonstrated how one of their bots worked. So you can watch that video if you are interested in Nectar. And I will say tomorrow, Roy Simpson is going to be speaking during convocation, and he is actively working on bots connected to the textbooks that they have created in the math department, the OER textbooks. And I believe the last time I talked to him, he was using Nectar. The two reasons were, one, Nectar does provide some template language, which he really liked. And Nectar works well with equations, so he was happy with that. Playlab also works well with equations, so don't let that part scare you. Yeah. And then support for these, both of them have extensive documentation and opportunities for webinars, questions, answers. So they both have adequate support, I think. As far as continued funding from the Chancellor's office, I have no idea. I think Playlab probably has because they've been really active in trying to develop that relationship. I think they will likely be funded. I don't know about Nectar. And Greg Beyer, who is our distance education coordinator, is starting a community of practice connected to Playlab, and then one other interface that I just learned about yesterday called, what is it called? Quicker, maybe? I think it's called Quicker, and it's QIKR. And so he's going to be talking about both of those. And this will just be a space for folks who are interested in this work. It's specifically going to be talking about creating bots. And so if you're interested in that, he's going to be sending out an email early in the semester to try to gauge interest. I will be participating in that so that I can help folks who are taking advantage of this opportunity so that we can, work out any bumps in the road. Okay, that is the end of the slide deck. I am going to get into each of these so you can kind of see. I'm going to show you the back end of the required instructional materials bot that I created. Okay. So this is previous chats. When you first get in here, you're in the building section. And so you are giving your bot background information. You are telling them who they're talking to. You are telling them what kind of language you want them you're telling them about what kind of language you want them to use. And then you give them the workflow, the specific workflow. And this is where you are telling the bot exactly what it's supposed to be. And in many, many cases, this workflow is going to be quite extensive. It's not that extensive in this particular example because we're covering just a really small section of information. But when I was testing it, you'll see that I kind of have this listed in here twice: never construct links and only suggest hyperlinks and URLs for information that was uploaded into references, and then again, do not generate or invent any URLs. That is because when we were in the testing phase of this, the bot was creating just fake URLs using the breadcrumbs of some of my reference material and then just adding what it thought would be a good end of that breadcrumb to find the resource that it needed. And so I had to keep going in and kind of revising this. The other thing I like about Playlab is when you're in this creation process, there is an assistant over here. So if you're struggling with something, you can actually go into the assistant and ask it, hey, it's doing this and I don't like it and I want to figure out how can I make it stop doing this? And it will give you some suggestions on how to revise things. Um, I want to come back here really quick too. And you can see here is where you will choose what you want on the back end of this. So I used Claude Reasoning, and I'm going to be quite honest with everyone that I did this in early December and I did looked at it again for the first time yesterday, and I can't remember exactly why it was that I chose this, but um, there was a reason. So I kind of looked through and tried to pick the one that I thought was going to be best for my particular helper. And as you're building it, you can see right here that you can be testing it as you build it. So you can make a change, you republish it, and then you can keep testing it over here on the left-hand side. So you have your background information, references. This is where you are uploading your content and how it's your knowledge base. Okay, so in here I have this is a Google slide deck. And so this is what I mean. It's pulling the name from this slide deck. If I try to go here to download it, it won't let me download it, but it does let me copy the URL. Now, if for all of my stuff is just openly licensed anyway. So if someone were to copy this URL and open a new tab and paste it, it would work and it would take them to the slide deck. A way that if you were interested in using Google Docs or Google Slides, a way that you could do that is lock down your slides. So maybe you create a copy that's specifically for your bot, and when you're sharing that, you can show, oops, huh, it didn't copy the URL. So maybe I didn't click it. Let's see. Okay. Oh, that was actually the website. So it took you to the website. Um, but if you were wanting to lock down your slides just in this share, you would restrict it so that only it would be restricted and people wouldn't be able to open it. Okay. And then this is a Google document. This, I think, is a Google Slides. This is a Google Slides. And this is the ZTC website. So most of my references are websites, slides, or docs. And I have heard from Fabiola, who created the one connected to her textbook. What she did with her textbook, instead of she does have the URL to the textbook in here, but what she found most effective is that she actually downloaded each chapter of her textbook as a PDF and included each chapter in the references as well. The file size max, it can only be 30 megabytes, but I believe you can add as many references as you want to. Okay, so even if you had if you did a liquid syllabus, and so there's a URL to that, and you have students not only using your bot for course content, but also because they have questions about when things are due, you could include that in here as well. Videos, I'm not sure about adding videos. I know you can add a YouTube video, like a link to a YouTube video, and I think it's just pulling information from the transcript. But I don't know. I haven't tested that, Eddie. That would be something that we would want to go through and test. Let's see. So the assistant is if you have questions. The settings are kind of the welcome message that people get, your app name, your app description. I can't remember what inputs are. Oh, this is like if you wanted to have under your bot like a sample question, how they would start the interaction. You can add that kind of information. And then in tools, they have a whole bunch of tools in here, and I don't have any of them turned on for this particular bot. But depending on what you're creating, if you need, like if they're asking for some sort of plot, like this might be useful in economics, maybe, Eddie. Like if you want the output to be able to do that, you could turn these on. And so you can see there's different things associated with equations and diagrams and things like that. Um, if you want them to be able to download the interactions in a Google Drive or create Word documents, then you could turn those on as well. Um, Design, I can't remember exactly what this tab was for. And then activity, this tab shows you how folks have been interacting with the app. So you can see the questions that have been asked and the answer that is outputted. And you can see just kind of a running total of what's happening. So like here is me testing. All of these are me testing it. And then these are from the 2 workshops that I've done in the last couple of days. All right. So, and this is what the Playlab interface looks like. And so you'll see other things that other people have created. You can search for apps here. And let's say if I'm just gonna pick something. So if I looked at this and thought, wow, that looks really great. I want to create something like that for mine. I would click this remix button and then it would show up on my workspace and I would have access to it. I'm going to show you. So these are the ones that I have remixed. So I could show you examples of them. And you can see that like this was someone else's had created it initially and someone remixed it and I hit the remix button. And so now it has remix in front of it both times. And so when you go in to edit these, again, you can kind of see how they have created it. And you can see the references that they have uploaded. Here's an example of a PDF, but you can see I can only copy the name. I can't actually download it or look at that. Okay. Okay. See if there's any questions. I'm going to move on. Actually, does anybody have any questions before I move on to Nectar?
Andy, I have kind of a general question, but I can wait till the end. It's not about this specifically. Would you like me to kind of ask at the end?
You can ask me now.
Okay. I guess what I was wondering was, I was wondering if there are any kind of like rules or limitations or restrictions we should be aware of, um, in terms of like using copyrighted materials as source material for our bot. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Um, and the reason I'm asking is because for 2 of our engineering classes, we've made them ZTC by having the library buy a bunch of copyrighted textbooks and scan them and give them access to the website. So I was wondering if it would be allowed to, or possible to kind of like take that book and feed it to these bots.
No, it is
Okay.
not. That
Okay.
would be a violation of copyright. Um,
Okay.
and and when we have done that in the library, you'll notice like when students access those, that they're pretty locked down, like they can't download and they can't, I mean, they could take a screenshot with a or take a
Yeah.
picture of it with their phone, but other than that, there's some restrictions. So no, and that I did try to make that pretty clear in the guidelines that you have to be using openly licensed material in your like to build the bot or things that are freely available online. So like if you found and not pirated, because you might be able to find a PDF of the same
Hmm.
book online. Um, yeah.
Okay. That's kind of what I suspected. Thanks for that. Also, just in general, this is super interesting and helpful. So thanks for this thing. And I think it will be useful for my other two classes. Right.
Okay. Thanks, Eric. Now, Eric, that doesn't mean like if you have because I had some biology faculty yesterday who talked about how um, they have created, just a ton of resources in slide decks and lecture notes and those kinds of things. Um, that I think is acceptable, but also knowing that what you are creating, someone could potentially remix and copy your bot even though they might not have access to the reference material that you're uploading in there, they would be able to see how you've created the bot. Does that make sense?
It does. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Okay. So Nectar, again, I'm going to be honest. I haven't used Nectar that much. So and I created this before the break. So I'm going to try to give you as much information as I can. Um, this is what it looks like on the user end, and they recommend actually putting those prompts in here so that if students are struggling where I'm not sure what to ask, you can actually put these kind of prompts in there, and that's the first question that you can ask the bot. And it does its thinking, and then it um, gives the answer. But I'm going to get into the settings part of it so we can kind of go through this. So general is you're giving it a name. Um, this is generated automatically. I did not generate the ID. Um, it's asking what workspace I want to put it in, and then a little bit of a description. The knowledge base, this is where you're uploading your sources. And so you'll see I uploaded, I think part of the reason that this bot did not did not perform as well as the other bot is that I wasn't able to put URLs here. I was able in the prompting information, and this is very similar to Playlab, I was able to add um, a link in here. So I think that might be a way to get around that limitation of adding links to your knowledge base. But basically, I copied the same sort of prompting information from Playlab and put it in here. And then the conversation starters are those questions that show up for the user. And you can add up to 4 of those conversation starters. And then I can't remember in in the advanced section, this is where you're choosing which AI platform it's built upon. And for temperature, it is controlling whether it's mostly pulling from your references before it tries to go out and look at other things. And if you do creative, it's going to look at other things like almost immediately. Predictable, and you could take this all the way to 0, so it's just looking at your knowledge base. Um, and then I disabled just the general web search because I knew stuff that they ZTC information that people might find just on a general web search is going to be connected to another college, and I didn't want that. Um, the other thing about, let's see, that I mentioned that Roy is using Nectar, and the reason that he liked it is that you are able to add templates in here. Um, I'm trying to remember where it was. I can't remember. It may have been in general. I honestly can't remember, y'all, because I just haven't used it that much. But certainly if folks are interested in using this, I would be willing to learn a little bit more. And I think I don't remember where it was, and I don't want to waste time trying to look through it. But you can kind of get the idea. ChatGPT also lets you create bots, but you have to have a paid account to do that. And I found that I think even students, when people are trying to access it, they needed to have a paid account. And that may have changed. I was playing with that last year. Um, but both of these companies, Playlab and Nectar, are nonprofit organizations and they were designed specifically for educators. So the back end of these, they really do have education in mind. And like I said, Playlab, I think it was super easy to learn how to use it and to navigate the platform, and they've got a lot of support. And you can see the the chancellor's office has done several cohorts, and I've participated in a couple of those, and that's how I have access to this workspace. Now, if you are kind of on the fence about this and you're not sure, I do have a workspace, my own kind of private workspace. They just locked this down, so people can't create their own private workspaces anymore. But I do have a workspace for faculty who are, if they're just interested in like you want to get in here and play around before you decide whether you want to participate in this stipend opportunity. I'm happy to add you to this workspace and you can have a place where you can go in and play with things before you decide whether you want to do it. I will say, what if you are going to pursue the grant opportunity and get the stipend, you don't want to create, I mean, you could create it in here to start with, but we would definitely want to move it into the California Community College workspace. And the reason for that is that they have a relationship with the chancellor's office, and that allows you, when you're sharing it, to not only get to get a link, but to get embed code so that you can embed it into a Canvas Commons page, or not Commons, but a Canvas content page. Um, so, okay. I think I'm done with all of my spiel, all of the details about the grant opportunity and the two bots. I will say that Greg's community of practice, he's going to be talking about Playlab and that other one that I mentioned, the Quicker. So we will get more information on that as that group starts to form. I'm going to stop the recording unless anybody has a question that they think others might benefit from.
I have one more, Andy. Um,
Okay.
you might have you might have covered this. I might have just missed it, but I was wondering if you create a bot with one of these tools, is it by default or is it basically is it public? Does it have to be public, or can you make a bot that is only for your use or in your classroom?
So because are getting money from the chancellor's office to create the bot, it would have to be public, yes, so that others could access it
Okay, but is it so? I guess I've already gotten money for like making my classes ZTC. Is this like a totally separate thing? I
completely.
was just
Yeah,
okay. I but if I don't, let's say I don't want to get the grant, I'm just want to like tinker with this and make a thing for my class. Could it
yeah.
like is it does the software allow you to make a private bot, I guess?
Yes. So when
Okay.
you are, let's see, let me look at this one. I think actually with Playlab, once you make it ready to use, other people will be able to find it. And if they
Okay.
had a Playlab account, they would be able to remix it. On Nectar, you'll see like I have just this private workspace and nobody else can see this. Um, but then this is a public workspace. This is where the bot actually lives. And I needed to put it in a public or a shared space so that I could share the link out. So
Hmm.
even to have your students to be able to use it, you'll have to put it in that shared space. But in Nectar, it allows you to limit who is accessing it. Whereas Playlab, once you make that public, that link can potentially be found by others.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna stop the recording.